Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Drawing Down the Stars. I'm Snappy, and thank you for joining me for our live tarot and sorte session today, September 12th, 2024. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. So let's start by giving a shout out to everyone here in the chat. Good to see you, Gandhi. Much love, Valerie. Good to see you, Geronimo. Isaac, much love. D-Love, good to see you. Nikosmas, good evening. Good evening, Christy. Much love, Taz. All right. Good to see you, Yaxium. Good to see you, Kari. All right. Thank you guys for joining me so early. Mother Rhea, much love. All the love in the world. Thank you guys for joining me first thing. That's amazing. All right. Well, let's start by talking a bit about the astrology. So today we moved into that moon in Capricorn. The moon in Capricorn, right? And the moon in Capricorn is intense energy. And yesterday I was focusing upon the moon in Capricorn and this energy of embodiment and engaging in nature and being in the physical and fixating upon that building. But there's also another energy here that we have to contend with and wrestle with and confront, and that is that harshness of Capricorn. Right? Capricorn is the stern mother, it's that disciplined energy, the one that sets us straight, right? And now is a time when we have to contend with this critical thought. And it can be both positive and negative depending on how it is applied, right? And it is something to be truly aware of. And it must be tempered with self-love. You know, in this moment when we have also that incredible sun in Virgo, that analytical, pure, virginal energy that strives for perfection, we have to be doubly careful, right? Now is a time when you can move mountains, but now is also a time when you can turn yourself into a worm through criticism, you know? And you have to be aware of this energy and aware of the intensity of this moment. And it's all about direction and flow and feeling it out and how it plays into your own individual energy, your own individual life, right? But Capricorn is beautiful. If you use it for building that mountain, if you use it to harden oneself, just don't let her hold you back or make you think you're worse than you are, right? Don't let that Virgo analyze you into the ground, make you believe that you're an imperfect being incapable of development, right? The dark side of these energies. But that's why it was interesting when I was thinking on this morning and I was meditating and I was drawing my cards. I drew the Princess of Cups, because the Princess of Cups is that beautiful divine child in the cup energy, right? I speak about the princesses often, but the image I got here was just reminding me too that that's that water of water, that pure love, right? Pure, abundant love, both giving and receiving. Even more so where the Queen of Cups is that ability to share and express and teach, right? But then there comes all that anxiety of adulthood and reality and strength. But in that princess, it's that pure, unadulterated love, right? That love of the child, the love of the child in the way that she looks at the world, right? And the love that a child has for themselves without judgment, before they even understand what judgment even is, right? And we got to remind ourselves to also embody this energy, that loving princess, the one who can just be in that joy, giving and receiving, moving in perfect flow, right? Perfect flow. Aphrodite, Pandemos, indeed, the lover of all, including the self, right? Including the self. Okay. So let's start today with some sortes. For those of you who are new here, the sortes is a form of bibliomancy, that is divination through literature, and it comes to us from the Greco-Roman tradition. And we invoke the goddesses, the spirits of inspiration, the muses. We ask them to guide our hand and send us a message through the text. So today we're going to begin with Goethe and Faust. So muses, what is the message from Goethe? Inspire us this evening. But not with faith or need. You never go to mass or say your creed. but not with faith or need. You never go to Mass or say your creed. Because, think about this. If it is out of these bonds, or it is out of something unreasonable like faith that you will receive, again, that relates to greed, right? It is about breaking away from these things like faith and greed. There are moments where faith is, or faith in need, or faith in greed. Like when we establish creeds and we move and flow with the universe, we want to do so through reasoned action. Faith, of course, can always play a part, but fundamentally it must be reason that drives us. And when we are bound by creed, when we are bound by faith, we have tied ourselves to something. How can you break free of the cycles if you are bound to the earth, right? You must be able to adapt and change and flow. Who you are today is not who you are tomorrow. And it's hard. People struggle, right? That's a hard thing to wrestle with. And it is uncomfortable, but it is a reality. It is a reality. And you have to be able to move between these things and change and develop over time. What is good today may not be good tomorrow. And what is good can be corrupted and can be transformed. And how you see the world today may not be how you see the world tomorrow. New information is always coming, new perspectives. And who's to say what you may have to do to protect yourself and your loved ones, right? Then everything goes out the window, right? Don't make binds you cannot keep. Do not engage in silliness like this, right? All it does is seeks to connect you and keep you bound up into something, right? Better to be in that spontaneous loving adoration. Just say a prayer. Right? We talk about all these days of the week, and yeah, you can do that and engage and make it a ritualized thing. But it's just as important and just as vibrant to just be in that joy, to just appreciate life in your everyday and to be in love. That's the best way you can give praise to anything. All right, let's continue. Uses. What is the message from Boccaccio? The Decameron. Guide our hand. Send us a message. Dead too, and for that I gave my Lord much countenance in his jealousy, doomed by God for my proper penance to entreat thee thus with food and drink and thrashings, until such a time as he may ordain otherwise, touching thee and me. Oh my gosh. What did I just read? Okay, let me read this back. Dead too, and for that I gave my Lord much countenance in his jealousy, doomed by God for my proper penance to entreat thee thus with food and drink and thrashings, until such a time as he may ordain otherwise, touching thee and me. Look at the language here. Doomed by God for my proper penance. He is doomed to God in order to gain God's forgiveness. This is a bind. This is the reason you avoid creeds, because these creeds bind you and can bring out the awful horror. This is an extreme example from the Middle Age or the early Renaissance, but it is nonetheless a real one. Nonetheless, the real one, Wow. Oh my gosh. And that's torture, right? It's torture. For my proper penance is to entreat thee thus, with food and drink and thrashings. So I keep you alive and beaten until such a time as he may ordain otherwise, by touching me and thee. Again, all this abuse. It's just intense and on full display. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's continue. Okay. Dante, the Divine Comedy. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Dante? Inspire us. The new spirit, Caniza da Romano, a sister of the cruel tyrant Azzolino, identifies herself. She does not complain of the influence of Venus, which determined her fate, since, like others, she is happy to be where she is, and oblivious to some phases of her past life, known, however, to others. Oh, wow. There's some interesting stuff here to contend with on multiple levels. The new spirit, Cuniza da Romano, a sister of the cool tyrant Azzolino, identifies herself. A new spirit identifies herself by her name, and her name is da Romano, the Roman. Sister of a tyrant. Interesting, right? This act of identifying oneself through the name is a magical act. Recognize, right? She does not complain of the influence of Venus, Aphrodite, again, which determined her fate. Like the others, she is happy to be where she is and oblivious to some phases of her past life, known, however, to others. Wow. So she's contented with her fate, but there is a question here. Would she be content if she knew the full extent of her fate and what Aphrodite had put her through? Right? And this is something that you see often with these Luciferian light-bringing characters, right? The wisdom is a cruel, is a cruel realization, you know? And part of the realization is learning that the Great Mother drags you through the cycles of creation, forcing you to take responsibility and evolve. And it is painful. And it is painful. But that's the nature of reality, right? That duality of that mother, that duality of life and death, right? She is the intersexed one who contains both poles inside her, the absolute creatrix, the unbirthed creator, you know? Interesting. Thing here is you can choose, right? You can choose whether to be happy, or you can choose to fixate upon the trials and tribulation that Venus drags you through. But you and I and all that lives will be dragged through the trials and tribulation, right? That's the nature of reality. Okay, let's continue. It's a bit of an intense day today. Okay, Muses. We're going to go now to Byron. All right. Muses, inspire me, guide my hand, send us a message. Tell us how to move and flow, how to overcome the moment, and how to maximize, how to manifest our true will. She knew that the best feelings must have victual, and that a shipwrecked youth would be hungry. Besides being less in love, she yawned a little and felt her veins chilled by the neighboring sea, and so she cooked their breakfast to a tittle. I can't say that she gave them any tea, but there were eggs, fruit, coffee, bread, fish, honey, with Siccio wine, and all for love and not money. Wow. Now this is beautiful. Thank you. She knew that the best feelings must have victual, right? They must be in that communal consumption. They must have love and blood and feeling. And that a shipwrecked youth would hungry be. Besides being less in love, she yawned a little and felt her veins chilled by the neighboring sea. And so, chilled by the sea, right? Chilled by the sea, Aphrodite again. And so, because of the chill, she cooked their breakfast to a tittle. I can't say that she gave them any tea, which is interesting. No caffeine for thee, right? But there were eggs, fruit, coffee. Oh, actually coffee, so just not tea. Bread, fish, honey, with Sikio wine, and all for love, not for money. But notice, bread, fish, honey, wine, eggs, fruit. These are all very, very important symbolic mystery foods. Wow. You know, and it also makes me think of this idea in the Temple of the Muses. There's a festival called the Galaxia, and it's a really beautiful idea where everyone would come and sit and eat together, right? You see similar rites like this in modern times, like in Amritsar, in the Punjab in India. The Sikhs there at the Golden Temple, they serve something called the langar, which is a form of communal meal where everyone sits on the ground and eats in harmony without difference. And then they all get up together and clean their plates. I went to the Golden Temple when I was in India, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. You know, it's interesting. This ability to come together and share in food is a truly profound act, right? Let's continue. The Shape of My Will. Okay. By Graham Quinn, my dear friend. Muses, what is the message from Graham? Inspire us this evening. This is so beautiful. Oh my God. I have been discovering new dimensions to myself, and for once in my life, I'm excited. Wow. I have been discovering new dimensions to myself, and for once in my life, I'm excited. That is pure Dionysian Bacchic energy if I ever seen it. And just beautiful, diving into the self, experiencing oneself in multiplicity through new dimensions and new perspectives, and to be excited about it. That transformation, that growth, that exchange. Recognizing the multiplicity inherent in being. Wow. Love it. Okay. Parvati Darpana by Harsha V. Dehasia. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Dr. Dehasia? Inspire us this evening. The mystic syllable Om is the bow. The arrow is the soul. Brahman is said to be the mark, the X. By the undestructed man is to be penetrated. Oh my gosh. This is the most Artemisian thing I've ever read. This comes to us from the Mundaka Upanishad, which is one of the Kashmiri Shaivite Upanishads. Oh my gosh. That is so beautiful. I'm just blown away. The mystic syllable Om is the bow. The reverberation of the string, the pulling of the string. The Om contains all sound, right? Wow. The arrow is the soul, which is projected from the string. Brahman is said to be the mark where we are going through the cycles of transformation as we penetrate. By the undestructed man is penetrated. We penetrate through the cycles of life. We move through them. Wow. Recognize you are more than this life. And we move through the cycles like an arrow of the soul. Hail Artemis. My gosh. I love it. Let us continue. The Jaguar and the Priest by Pedro Pictarch. Okay. Muses. Guide my hand. What is the message from Pedro Pictarch? Inspire us. Grant me your kindness. Grant me your caress. We desire the caress of the word from your lips. We desire the caress of the word from your heart. Grant me the sacred blessing. Can reunite me with the sacred blessing. Can you let me have your face? Can you let me have your gaze? Wow. And it says in the citation, this is a shamanic address that was given to saints, to sanctified figures, usually who would be worshipped as statues, but folk heroes. Similar maybe to the muses. Remember, Helen and Sappho are muses. Grant me your kindness. Grant me your caress. We desire the caress of the word from your lips. We desire the caress of the word from your heart. Grant me the sacred blessing. Reunite me with the sacred blessing. Can you let me have your face? Can you let me have your gaze? Let me have your face and let me have your gaze. This is also something deeply shamanistic and theatrical. Right? The donning of the mask and the looking through another's perspective. Taking on the mask and being possessed by the deity. Going into that womb, the skene, and being reborn a god. Right? Think about this. The donning of the mask and asking to wear the mask. Asking to become that energy, right? I talk about this often. Yesterday, we had that Empress card. You can be that Empress. You can draw that divine feminine into your soul. You can become that embodied if you are willing to be penetrated by that arrow. Interesting. Let's continue. Hermann Hesse, Narcissus and Goldman. All right. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Hermann Hesse? Inspire us. His hands were swollen and lifeless, and his arms were stiff with cramps all the way to his shoulders. He had to exercise them. He forced himself to move them, to make the blood stream through again. Now he had a plan that seemed good to him. Wow, look at this on full display, the relationship with the body and the mind. And recognize, okay, if your hands are swollen and lifeless, if your arms are stiff with cramps, if you are weak and need to exercise, you know, like you have to move to make the blood flow stream. You have to dance and harmonize. You must work. You must move, right? Everything dances, nothing stands. Nothing stands. And if you wish to formulate a good plan, you must move in harmony and flow with the body. That blood must flow. You must be in stream. You must be healthy. Recognize, right? So often in our modern society that we're so disconnected and so, programmed to be, I'm not saying we are this way, but we are so programmed to be in that narcissistic mode. They want you to be disconnected from self. They want you to be nothing but a consumer and a creative that produces to sell themselves or consume something. And you have nothing else, right? Recognize. You got to be healthy. You have to be in the body. You have to listen to the unconscious. You have to move and flow. You must exercise. Only then can that plan come and that reason be actualized. Okay. 10 Plays by Euripides. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Euripides? What profit do they afford to the votaries It is not right for you to hear, but they are worth knowing. Wow. It is not right for you to hear, but they are worth knowing. But also, I want you to recognize, right? This is coming to us from the Bacchae, and this is Pentheus speaking to the stranger Dionysus, but he does not know that it is Dionysus. He is just appalled by these weird and strange, by his perspective, rites. And he sees all these people engaging in this rites, and he asks, what profit do they afford to the votaries? And Dionysus's answer is, it is not right for you to hear, but they are worth knowing. Ever that tormentor, when I first read the Bacchae, you know who Dionysus in this story reminds me of 10,000%? Is Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka. Stop, don't, please. Help, police, murder. Just sign on the dotted line, forget the fine print. That kind of stuff. Hilarious. But just also wild, It's Pentheus's ignorance and his refusal to listen that gets him killed, right? It gets him destroyed. He doesn't listen to the signs. The muses are constantly telling you, right? Don't go do this crazy thing. But if you're stuck in your ego and you're obsessed with desire and you have to experience, you can experience the totality of the right and you will be reborn anew. You won't like it, trust me. All right, let's continue. Shiva in the primordial tradition. Okay. Elaine Danilou. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Elaine Danilou? Inspire us this evening. During the Middle Ages, modes deemed to be sensual were forbidden by the church, always sexophobic. Not to speak of the augmented fourth, which does in fact open horizons onto the invisible and was considered to be diabolical. The diabolus in musica. Now, this is kind of a well-known hoax by modern standards, if anyone's super into music history. In the Middle Ages, they didn't actually ban the tritone, right? The augmented fourth. But they do talk about it as satanic, and you do get later people condemning it in a huge way by the 1900s, And then it does become a big thing with heavy metal, right? Black Sabbath uses the tritone to perfection in their debut single, Black Sabbath, right? It's wild. And that it is eerie. It is eerie to hear those musical notes, right? To invoke that ugliness, right? Diabolus in musica. Interesting. But it's also recognized, right, that the sound can bring different forces, can conjure feeling and emotion, right? Recognize. Okay. Watch Fiends and Rack Screams by Antonin Artaud. All right, muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Antonin Artaud? Inspire us this evening. As if time were not a French fry, were not this crocked fry of all the friabilized of the threshold, re-embarked in their coffin. Wow. As if time were not a French fry, were not this crocked fry of all the friabilized of the threshold, re-embarked in their coffin. He's talking about how when you create that French fry and you overcook it, it becomes crisp and hollow in the middle, transforming into a coffin. Through that pressure and experience, where we become hollowed out on the inside and nothing but a shell. Wow. What a wild analogy there, Antonin Artaud. Love it. Okay, let's continue. All right. We're going to go to Don Juan in Hell. Okay. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Bernard Shaw and Don Juan in Hell? The highest form of literature is the tragedy, a play in which everybody is murdered at the end. Not necessarily everybody, but in which there is a horrible climax, you know. There is a tragic moment. There is a murder or a violence that takes place. But listen, tragedy is the highest form of literature. What is tragedy? Tragedy is the goat song. It comes to us from the festival rites of Dionysus, right? From the theater. And these were those plays that were designed for those communal forms of purgation, where you could go through the rites and face the most vile and disturbing things from your culture. You know, you could put the violence on display and experience a communal catharsis, right? Through this reception and perception of the vile. You know, it's about examining and looking at what we are afraid of and asking why. Why are these things taboo? Why is this such a hard thing to face? And how do we overcome it? You know, oftentimes what terrifies us and what scares us the most are the things that we do not understand. And it is only through that communal reception and engagement, truth and reconciliation that we can overcome and move past, right? Tragedy allows us to face the nightmares, right? It's therapy. Beautiful. Let's continue. We're now going to go to Edgar Allan Poe. Muses, got my hand. What is the message from Poe? Inspire us. And the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all. Gosh, and the great god Pan is dead. Oh my gosh. The flames of the tripod expired. It is upon the tripod that Apollo gives his prophecy, right? But look, in that darkness and decay, the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all. Who is the Red Death? Truly, forget it from the context of Poe and think about it in the context of the Red Goddess, Mystery Babylon herself. When the flames of the tripods expired, when that feminine power upon the earth in that form was extinguished, they gave birth to a new form, to a vengeance that would come, right? To that Red Death. Oof. And she does hold dominion. And these are the cycles, you know. Recognize Uranus is castrated and becomes Aphrodite of the foam. You know, like that happens. Zeus castrates Saturn, Kronos, and binds him in Tartarus, right? And he himself, he becomes consumed. Well, he gets that prophecy that his child will overthrow him, the child that he will have with his twin, Metis, his feminine half. And rather than face this, he consumes her. But it doesn't prevent anything. And instead, he suffers horrendous pain and then birth from his head through the power of reason and the craftsmanship of his Festus is Athena, right? Athena, justice herself, right? That true pursuer of the arete, right? There's going to be, you can't, like these cycles, just because that force is put down, it will be reborn anew, right? And it's cycles of where things are powerful, right? In the spirit realm and upon the earth. Right now, we're in that patriarchal mode, but it is changing. The cycles are changing. And recognize that the cycles, too, they take generations to fully change. And we're in the midst of this unfolding, you know? For that, Like a lot of people get confused about this. If we look at the ancient Greek world, right, and we have to understand, like, it's already a very patriarchal world. Even though there are these great mother cults and there are these powerful women that exists in pockets throughout the world, there is the rise of this patriarchal authority that is coming and it is usurping the power everywhere. You know, we do have this Olympian power that displaces the chthonic force, that replaces the Median force, right? Heracles and Ganymede, you know, that happens. Orpheus is destroyed by the Maenads for his transgression, but the transgression happened, you know? Right? We also see that there are transgressions even at the temples. I was reading today where at the temple at Delos, the priestesses, the virgin priestesses were raped by outsiders. And so they decided to change the institution because they were so terrified that they would be unable to protect these girls. They became older women. You know, it's like the violent, and then they killed the older women. So it's like successions of violence and transformation that changes this tradition, you know, and this tradition is eventually kicked out. But those are how the cycles play. Now we're seeing is the cycles go the other way. We're seeing the rise, right? We're seeing a rebirth on these forces. And you're seeing it changing in a sway. And it's causing a reaction. It's causing a reaction. But these are death throes, my friends. The cycle is moving in a very clear direction for those with ears to hear. All right, let's continue. Okay, what time is it? Oof. All right, we've been doing too many sortes and getting caught up again. I love it. All right, we're going to hop over to our tarot proper. But before I do, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference, and it boosts everything in the algorithm. I would truly, truly appreciate it. And if you are at all interested in a private reading, please reach out. You can find me at snappydddts@gmail.com, or you can message me on the Myth and Lore Discord. I'm Snappy or Lady Snappy. And we're always hanging out there having a good time. Please come say hi. It would be nice to make new friends. All right. And we are going to use the Thoth Tarot of Lady Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley. And we are going to invoke Saturn Kronos and ask them to dissect our life, to cut it up and expose it upon the plate, to show us our conflicts and our interconnections. And we ask, how do we rise above? How do we best move and flow? How do we evolve? And how do we manifest our true will? And what is the message for the community? And as always, the center card is the most important card. And today's center is sorrow. Sorrow. I'm immediately thinking, when I received this card, of our sortes. And the sorrow is the harshness of reality, you know. A lot of people have a deep issue with the suffering, right? You know, we have entire religions and philosophies that have to confront that sorrow, you know, because there is a trueness in this, right? Think of the fourfold path of Buddhism and the first noble truth. That is, life is suffering, right? Life is suffering. To live is to die. But it is also love. And that is something I've always challenged with that Buddhism. You know, it's like we can admit both, that love can only exist within creation, and that there's a purpose for creation, and creation is beautiful and worthy of being engaged with, right? The generations must be pursued. We must learn to face this suffering and laugh at it and pursue that joy and abundance and love, which is our right. You know, what would you rather do? Blow out the light? Go into nothing but the dark? Or exist within those cycles and transform? Be reborn anew? Experience love again? Interesting. Let's continue. Oppression. Oppression. Part of the connection of this sorrow of the Three of Wands here, right, is this massive fixation upon pleasure, right? When we see the 10 of Wands, this is that energy of overindulgence to the point of stagnation, where we are now becoming obsessive and addicted, holding ourselves back and imprisoning ourselves. This is when something that's pleasurable and loving that we enjoy no longer brings us that joy, but it's now become routine. It now defines our actions. It now imprisons us within those cycles, right? I always think when I was a child, my father struggled with smoking. And his final moment when he decided to quit smoking is he couldn't sit with us in the movie theater for 2 hours. And he's having a heart attack. And we're watching the movie. And he's there with me and my brother. And we're little kids. He can't leave us. He can't take us out the movie. And that's when he finally decided to quit because he couldn't handle something controlling him. But that's what this energy is, that energy of control, right? When you're bound to these things that are harming you, when you can't break these cycles that are now defining you and that are imprisoning you. And it's leading to this sorrow, right? There's this feeling that we cannot break from these cycles, right? That these cycles are habitual and ingrained and are comfortable, right? Let's continue. How do we learn to face and overcome these cycles? The root of these cycles is a wound. It's a deep personal wound of the self. And we're being told that we need to sit with the self, to do that hard work of Virgo. Recognize that we are in the sun in Virgo. The hermit is exalted, right? The hermit is that Virgo, the one who goes to the depths of the cave and shines a light and faces the harsh reality that is present there. And when we see these kind of energies of obsession and of sorrow, we need to do that work of saying, what is bothering us? What do we truly feel? How is it affecting us? And we need to do it in a totality, both that conscious self and that unconscious self. You need to sit in the body and listen, being recognized. Often we will feel unhealthy before we will even know what the problem is, right? Let's continue. Oh, wow. So much intense energy here. Now we have the interference. So this sorrow, this depression, it's also leading to an interference. So what I'm getting here is that the root of this sorrow is also just this belief in that things will not grow and expand or change, that things cannot become better. And that is leading to an interference, a greater overthinking, right? This action that's now preventing and self-sabotaging, that is justifying the sorrow, right? These are energies that are supporting one another. The depression leads to interference, and the interference justifies the depression, right? It's that real self-defeatist, self-harming type energy. Oh, wow. Let's continue. The Emperor. Intense energy, right? The Emperor is that Aries, right? That masculine in its totality. We had talked about the other day of the feminine in its totality. Now we see the masculine, right? On one hand, it is that incredible loving provider, that father, that teacher, the one who can build and sustain, who has the courage to face the unknown and to guide. But on the other hand, he has that potential to be the tyrant, the oppressor, the authority who seeks to control and to possess. There's a totality in this image. It can be put to love or to violence, to protection or to building. It's all about how it is directed and how it is engaged with. And we all need to learn to embody this energy. Many of us are disconnected from this energy because we are taught that it is evil. It is not evil. It is an energy that has to be utilized and engaged with in a proper way. There are times when we need to be that strong authority in our life, when we must defend ourselves and we must assert our will. No one will assert your will for you. No one will make decisions for your life but you. You must recognize and you must ascend the throne and be your own boss. All of us have to reconcile this masculine, regardless of our gender, right? Regardless of our sex, regardless of our age. And this is an energy that we need to embody at certain times and that we need to suppress at others, right? And what I'm seeing here is that now is a time when it must be engaged. We must take authority into our own hands, and we must be that bigger person, the one who says, let's overcome the BS, stop overthinking and do, right? Let's continue. Yeah. The Emperor breaks that cycle of oppression and engages a new cycle, a new way of approach through disciplined action in the pursuit of will, right? The pursuit of will. The Emperor ascends the throne and projects into the future a clear vision of what they want and what they are going to do. And if it is a good vision, then this is beautiful, powerful, helpful energy. And that is what I'm seeing here. Now is the moment when we embody this, when we pursue our dreams, when we ascend the throne and assert our will and pursue a new passion. We break the cycles that have bound us. We overcome those addictions and we pursue new love in a healthy, reciprocal way from a new perspective, from a disciplined, strong perspective who goes out into the world and acts for themselves, right? Don't interfere. Don't hold yourself back. Don't overthink this, you know? It's okay. The key is to be in that flow. Don't try to possess others. Don't try to restrict others. Don't try to abuse others. Move with love and you will receive love, right? Love under will, true will. You know, if that Emperor is acting in true will, this is the most beautiful energy possible. Let's continue. Oh, wow. So many swords, so many swords. Futility. What I'm seeing is the root of all of this energy, of all these swords, right? We see the 8, the interference, the 7, futility. But at its root is this depression. It's this sorrow, right? There is a deep internal wound. There is something that is causing us to there's a deep internal wound that we need to confront. And because we haven't been able to confront it, it's manifesting in our life in other ways. We believe we're incapable, right? We interfere and prevent ourselves from moving forward. We sabotage, in fact. We self-sabotage in order to justify the sorrow, to make the sorrow true, right? It's deeply, deeply hurtful and harsh energy we're seeing here. Wow. Let's continue. Interesting. But this cycle's coming to an end, right? That futility is reaching its natural conclusion. This sorrow is reaching its conclusion. What we're seeing here with the death is that this is about a rebirth and it's about a becoming, right? You know, time to grow up. This is like what I'm getting here. It's kind of funny, but think of those cliche coming of age, silly men movies where you gotta be a man. That's that energy in some way, you know, take responsibility, man up, you know, for lack of a better term, I guess, emperor up, right? It's that energy of how do you overcome the discipline? It's about this or the oppression. You overcome the oppression through disciplined action and through becoming that mature person, right? Who takes responsibility for themselves, you know? That's one thing we can say about the emperor. They're in control, for better or for worse, you know? And this cycle is about learning to break out of oppression and take control of your life, okay? Wow. And the final card is the Star. So this is a deeply painful moment. This is a harsh moment, but what we're seeing is that this is a wish, okay? So what I'm getting at is that there's this deep trauma within the self. There's a deep trauma in the body, okay? And we have been unable to face this sorrow. Many of us here are dealing with something that is truly rooted in our body and probably in the past. And this whole cycle here, coming to this conclusion with the obsession, right? With this addiction type energy, facing all this sorrow and all this interference and futility, right? We wish to confront all this energy so that we can move past it and be reborn, so that we can learn to become this mature adult, right? This mature adult. But we have to go through that cycle. We have to face that sorrow. We have to go to the depths of the self, right? We have to die and be reborn, in essence. You know, in order to become this energy, we have to let go of our past selves and reimagine ourselves into the future and take responsibility and authority of it. You know, really imagine who you are in the fullest extent. You know, you can even write this down. One of the interesting things, you know, when it comes to magic is you'll notice that a lot of the greatest modern magicians especially are authors, character creators, you know, people who play, who engage in theater, this kind of stuff. You can do the same thing, right? Get yourself a D&D sheet. Imagine yourself as a D&D character. Where are you going? Right? What would you love to be at level 20? What's your trajectory? Try to plan it out, imagine it out, draw it out as your own fantasy and see where it takes you, right? It's fun. All right. We're now going to take a look at the full spread. But before I do, once again, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference. And if you would like a private reading, reach out, snappydts@gmail.com. Or you can find me on the Myth and Lore Discord, Snappy or Lady Snappy. And please come hang out in the Discord. We're always having good times. All right, let's take a look. So here we go. The key to overcoming this oppression and to realizing that emperor is to go through these cycles. And also, you know what? With this death, it's about recognizing that this is a fated cycle. This is a fated cycle. This is a happening. You are in the midst of this process. This is unfolding before your eyes. When we see death, it is unlike the tower. The tower is that transformation that catches you off guard, that comes and knocks your foundation. This is a long time coming. This is fated energy. This is bound to happen. You know, you need to overcome this addiction and you need to take responsibility and become the authority of your life. You know, I'm immediately thinking of one of my favorite philosophers of all time, Christine de Pizan. You know, and her story is reflected in this so beautifully, right? Christine de Pizan was the first professional writer that was a woman in Europe. And this was forced upon her. This was not something that she pursued. This was something that she had to become because fortune made her. And she talks about having to wrestle with fortune and become a man. Because what happened to her was her husband died. And when her husband died, she was left to take care of their children and their extended family and their holdings. And she had to go and fight in court. And they wouldn't give her money because she was a woman and she almost went bankrupt. So what does she do? Is she writes. She does what she does know, the skill her father and her husband taught her. And she publishes and defends women, but as a male philosopher. And this saves her and she becomes one of the most influential women in European history. But it is because of facing that death, facing that transformation, because she became that emperor, right? She took care of her kids. She took care of her mother, right? She dealt with her assets. She published flipping books. She ascended to the court of the French High Court. That's pure emperor, if I ever heard it. That's what this is about, you know? Taking that responsibility, facing fate, adapting and overcoming. Taking responsibility. All right. All this painful energy, right? We were talking about this, the futility and the interference. It's rooted in the sorrow. It's rooted in this depression. And this is a wound, right? An inability to start. It's an inability to expand beyond that peace, right? As we try to move out into the world, there's a fear. There's a fear to engage with others. But we must recognize that if we can expand beyond the three, we can engage in that truce, in that harmony. And from the truce, we give birth to the lotus, right? Shared perspectives that give birth to beauty. All we need to do is engage and overcome and not let ourselves be bound to negative thinking. But there is a deep wound here, something that we have not faced, something that is continuing to impact all of our thoughts and all of our actions. And we need to go into that hermit mode and ask, what is this? Why are we continuing to self-sabotage to prevent ourselves from going forward? What is holding us back? Why are we sad? What is the root cause of that sadness? What are we afraid to lose? You know, if you're afraid of death, sit with the self. Pay attention, and soon you'll start to recognize that all you are is an observer. Everything else is something else. And death won't have the same kind of meaning, you know? Let's continue. Okay. Let's go here, right? We wished for this. We're gaining that new perspective. We're overcoming oppression. We just have to finish the rite. And this part of the rite is going to the underworld, going into the unconscious, facing the self, and going through the transformation. That Virgo energy, right? Who is the hermit? Who is Virgo? She is the one who, through her own purity, ascends to the stars. Through her own purity, through her own skill, through her own mastery. You have this ability. You've been given this by Venus. But you just got to do it, right? You got to go to that place. But if you can, you will light your torch and be inspired to move and flow, right? And that torch, look at the three. That torch here, this new passion, overcomes the sorrow and will lead us through Hades, lead us through death, lead us through that destruction. We overcome. And look at this. Our wishes are fulfilled when we become the emperor, and the emperor is our wish. We just need to do, it's just the sorrow that is holding us back, you know? Just the sorrow that is holding us back. And a lot of it is rooted in this inability to take possession for one's life and authority, to become that mature authority in one's life, to ascend the throne and be that patriarch, right? This is difficult energy. But it can be beautiful energy. You just have to be in that true, moral, loving, engaged way. Be connected to her, right? If these energies are combined together and flow, it's beautiful, right? It's beautiful. Okay. That's the message, everyone. Go deep into the self, take responsibility, ascend the throne, assert your will, go through the cycles, embrace that torch, shine a light, and make a new path for yourself. That's the message. I hope it resonated with you. It certainly resonated with me. All right, let's do one final sorties and we'll call it an evening. And we're going to go to Edgar Allan Poe. So muses, what is the final message from Edgar Allan Poe? What do we leave our audience with this evening? The impetuous fury of the entering gust nearly lifted us from our feet. It was indeed a tempestuous yet sternly beautiful night, and one wildly singular in its terror and its beauty. Hecate on full display. Hecate on full display. That impetuous fury of the entering gust that carries you off your feet. A tempestuous yet sternly beautiful night, and one wildly singular in its terror and its beauty. Singular in terror and beauty. Go out under the stars, connect with that energy, right? Be inspired, be inspired. Ascend the throne and assert your will over your own life. All right. Peace and love, everyone. I hope I see you again soon. Take care.